Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back in the world. It is now summer, after having done some major renovations to the starter house, and it is no longer the starter house, it is now the guest house, or the in-law house, whichever. And I really like how it came out. I am still in love with the things we did, including especially this little area right in here. And since we're inside, we may as well take off our shoes. There we go. Don't want to walk around these floors and dirty them up, right? Anyway, I love the interior. I think it's nice and bright in here now, and I wouldn't mind staying in here myself. Now, before we get to the meat of today's episode, we have someone that we should probably check up on. Last episode, we imprisoned TJ down in a cell down here, and I thought it was high time that we go and see how they are doing. That's not good. I left you food. You didn't... Oh dear. Well, hey, great episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all again never. Bye. No, I'm kidding. TJ must have escaped. That is the only explanation I have for what happened. I left them food and they didn't eat it. I think we have been hoodwinked. I think they may have dug up the ground here and escaped somehow. I don't know. You tell me. But today's episode is about resources, because we are woefully short on a particular resource. Granted, while we're not exactly short on steel, we don't have any more iron to make more steel. And we are likely to use almost all of this if we were to make a suit of steel full plate, which I do want to make in the nearish future. Oh right, you notice that I made a meteoric iron inbuild because I was tired of hauling this thing back and forth. So to that end, we are going to go on a bit of an adventure out to a couple places. We're going to go here because there's iron here, but I would also like to go down to the southern area we've discovered, because in here I have found, here we go, some other iron. There are 3 kinds of iron ore, and we've really only done much with the one kind, which is magnetite, right there. But there are 2 other kinds, hematite and limonite. And I thought it would be good to gather some and talk about them, and bring some home and restock our iron supplies, of course. Now, on the way, we will be passing through a bunch of different areas that we've been to and have found certain resources. One is the Kimberlite mine. I want to grab some more Kimberlite, which is right near the Hematite mine over that way, and bring it home because we are out of that green rock. The other one is, the other 2 I should say, are things that you can only acquire with steel pickaxes. There are only a couple materials that require steel, one of them being ilmenite and the other being chromite. And we've found some actual chromite, as in we've seen it with our 2 eyeballs, assuming we all have 2. The other ilmenite we haven't seen yet, but we do know about where it is. If I can find the propic here, I can go to the map, and right up here we have found some ore ilmenite, 0.7 per meal, but that is probably indicative of a larger area of ilmenite waiting for us. So, without further ado, I think we should go ahead and swap out our backpacks for some mining bags. We'll drop our iron pickaxe in there and our pro pick. We're going to grab a couple steel pickaxes and our bombs, and we are going to go ahead and head out. I will meet all of you over at the hematite mine and bring y'all back when I'm there. Okay, we are here. And, oh right, we have a trader nearby. I forget if he has a bed we can sleep in. Oh, he does have a bed. Oh, don't do that. Could have bought shoes from you last episode. So, let's go ahead and take a gander. Oh, and we already have a ladder. And to think I brought my own. Boy, I didn't leave much ladder, did I? Tell you what, let's do a new ladder. This goes down, doesn't it? Alright, well, let's see what's down here. there's our iron ore. It's a little hard to see, thanks to the fog. I think we'll lay out a floor here, just so we don't fall to our doom. And then, we now have access to two very, very foggy kinds of iron. Let's dig into the wall a bit, and let's get a better look at them from somewhere that's not quite so misty. There we go. Once we're sealed in, the fog goes away, and we can see that hematite is sort of a reddish ore in whatever kind of host rock it's in. Now, this, since it is a single block tall, it may once again be quite a lengthy deposit here. So let's go and just dig through and see how far it goes. Okay, so this deposit, at least, it's not very long, or it might just not be very wide. And again, it does go out a little bit into here, if we bring back the fog. Oh, no more fog. Okay, good. So it does continue a little bit out here, but I don't think it goes a whole lot farther. Yeah, I don't see much going on there. Let's switch to node search. It's probably still going to be huge. Small amounts of hematite. Okay. So this might be the width, or it could just be a smaller deposit than the giant magnetite one that we found up north. So let's go to about the midway point here. We'll say about here. Alright, this torch. And now let's go east and west and see if this is just longer than it is wide. Oh, and we have the scary music again. That was quick. Okay, well, it seems like this is not such a huge deposit after all. So we've already seen the length of it, and this is indeed the length of it, as the whole thing. Width-wise, it is pretty small, so it only comes out to here, and about the same distance out this way. So we kind of hit it right in the middle here, sort of by accident. I'm going to start mining this out after I go upstairs and let my stability recover while it's still light out. Then we'll move on to the Kimberlite mine and the next destinations. While we're mining, I thought I'd go ahead and answer a few more of the 20 questions that have come in. I got a big rush of them, thanks to all of you who've been advertising the questions in the comments, and I have a bunch to answer. I also have a few other thoughts that have been inspired by some other comments and discussions on several videos, so after we're done with the 20 questions, I want to address a couple other odds and ends. I think it should be fun. Anyway, let's get to it. Now my head hurts. It's that time again. Time for 20 questions. Since we have several mining trips today, we'll be splitting these answers into two parts, and then later in the episode, we'll have another heart-to-heart. Without further ado, and while we mine hematite in the background, here are my answers to some of your questions. Our first question is from the Louie Lou. After you finish reading all of the content in Vintage Story, what are you going to read to us next? You know, I haven't really put any thought toward that. I was kind of hoping there would be enough content to carry us through 1.17 and to 1.18, which is planned to greatly expand the game's lore. Although it's unclear whether this means by adding more journal entries or some other vehicle. I'll have to give that some thought though, especially as we get closer and closer to reading all the lore currently in the game. Our second question is from Charworm. Have you ever tried Dwarf Fortress? Are you interested in the Steam release? I've tried to play Dwarf Fortress a few times, both with and without graphics packs that make it more visually pleasing. It's not quite my cup of tea, if I'm being honest. I do like the style of game, but I feel like RimWorld is about as unforgiving as I want a game to be in that regard. So I'm not really looking forward to Steam release. I don't hate it, but if you enjoy it, hey, have fun. Our next question is from the Multiplane. I have some digital fan art for you. What's the best way to get this kind of thing to you? Oh wow, this is a first for me. Before I answer, big thanks for an order, so thank you. That's really cool. As for sending me this kind of thing, the best ways currently are probably to either post it in the official Discord server's fan art and stories channel, and tag me, also Kurazar there, or to the Vintage Story subreddit, which I check pretty much daily. If you don't have access to either of those or don't want to create an account, Posting it on any other publicly accessible social media and dropping a link in a comment works just as well. And, as long as you're okay with it, I'd like to share the artwork in a video. Anyway, thanks again, that is really cool, and I'm so looking forward to seeing it. Our next question is from Andy Days. Would you ever play on a Vintage Story survival multiplayer server? Would I ever? Sure, and I have. While I cut my teeth in single player back in, I think, late 2019 or sometime in 2020, I have played plenty on servers. I run one myself for real-life friends and family, although I only fire it up when people express interest in playing, and I've also spent probably a couple hundred hours on the Aura Fury server. I haven't been there in a while, unfortunately, but I kind of covered why in a previous 20 questions segment. Basically, it felt like 98% single player with the occasional meetup to check out each other's builds, or, more rarely, go spelunking together. Those are fun times, though. Our next question is from the Midnight Trust. Do you have any tips on laying out circular-ish builds? I spent hours trying to chisel a spiral staircase that didn't look blocky before I finally gave up and just hid a ladder of shame in the closet. Vintage Story and circles don't really get along, do they? In this and other block games, I have 3 general pieces of advice on circles. 1, if the planned build is under about 5 blocks diameter, I usually figure I'd be happy enough with a mostly square build or a slightly rounded build, like a 4x4 tower with the corners cut off to make a, quote, circle. For small to medium-sized builds, say from 5 to 11 blocks diameter, I'll use a circle generator for block games. If I need access to multiple floors, I'll usually do a ladder or a staircase that roughly follows the wall. It's not until you get to larger builds that I'll generally consider spiral staircases, and frankly I don't normally find them to be worth the trouble. A simple solution to your staircase situation, though, might be to encase a 3x3 spiral staircase of stairs and ups and stairs around a central post and then encase it in material that you then chisel into a circle. It might not be super authentic, but at least you'll finish it before you turn 100. Well everyone, that was everything from the iron mine. Didn't get a huge haul, but we'll take a look at it when we get home. For now, I'm going to zip over to the Kimberlite mine and pick up a whole bunch of Kimberlite. And I'm more interested in the relieved stones than I am in the small stones. So I'm going to just leave like a chest there and fill it up with small stones and bring back the relieved stuff with us. And we'll come back for the small ones later. I'll meet you there. It's scary coming here. We're going to the Kimberlite side. Alright, let's get started. And while we mine some Kimberlite, let's cover the last couple questions that have been posed recently on the 20 questions hashtag. Our next question is from Henry Williams. Is there any one animal that you would want to see come to the game? What would it be? Oh boy, there are a ton of animals that I want to see in Vintage Story, but if you're asking me to pick only one, I'm going to go with something that the player could ride. Maybe a horse? Though the other block game's implementation of them is somewhat derpy, since you can get your head stuck in blocks and suffocate. So Vintage Story would need to do them better. And I am aware of the mod that adds horses, but there seems to be an issue in where it doesn't recognize non-natural blocks as a bad place to spawn, so you can end up with horses and aurochs winking into existence in your living room. If it's not possible to do a non-derpful horse implementation, then maybe some kind of large bird? I've played a good amount of Ark in the past, and my favorite mounts were always the flyers, especially Argent Davis once you get high enough level to craft their saddles. Vintage Story doesn't seem to be headed in that direction though, so I'll settle for a horse. Our last question of the day is from someone random, that is their username. You mentioned you went to college. What did you study or major in? Are you working in that field now? I went to college to study Dungeons & Dragons mostly. I played a solid 25 hours every week, sometimes more. Oh, you meant like what the university said I was enrolled in. That would be English with a writing concentration. Basically a standard English literature program with a bunch of writing classes tacked on. As for working in that field, yes, but definitely not the way I expected. I had visions of becoming the next best-selling fantasy author. The reality is that that can take ample amounts of both time and luck, and in the meantime I needed to put bread on the table. English degrees are pretty applicable to a lot of careers though. Any job that requires a lot of writing, you probably want someone with an English degree, or maybe journalism or other communication-based degree, since they often overlap some classes with English majors. I currently work as a man of many hats at a small web development firm. My official title is Lead Quality Assurance and Research Analyst, but I handle basically every part of website development except writing the code and managing everyone's schedules. I do a lot of writing, especially for communication purposes. Since I have to write documentation that gets consumed both by our non-technical customers and our highly technical development team, I can say I definitely do use my experience with writing, and more importantly, analyzing English text, to do my job effectively. I hope you enjoyed my answers to your questions, and whether this is your first time or you're a repeat offender, feel free to ask me anything and include the hashtag 20questions, and I'll respond to your question in a video like this one. Okay, and that was all the Kimberlite for now. We've got 2 1/4 stacks of relieved stones, so I think we're good for now. I'm going to run all this home and drop it off, and then we'll be back out on our way to check out that ilmenite and the chromite and the limonite. Okay, items dropped off, supplies restocked. I thought over here we could come and check on our cherry tree. Yes. Oh, cool. So, I guess I was wrong a few episodes ago in saying that the only thing that the greenhouse affects is the vernalization temperature. But it seems that because it affects the vernalization temperature of your trees, they're vernalized earlier, which means they'll come out of winter a little faster. So while this tree is ripe for 7.5 days, our cherry tree out front has it ripen, and it's going to do so in about 4 days. So that could be an interesting way of staggering your harvests by putting some trees inside greenhouses and others not so much. And cherry trees, as I understand, may be the most prolific per harvest. Yeah, look at that. We got 9 cherries per harvest. Okay, but they only have half the satiation of the other fruit. So these aren't going to be as good for putting into meals because they won't provide as much satiation. But they may still be useful for things like wine or other fruit juice uses. Interesting. Cherries also are not as shelf-stable as, say, apples or pears. They seem to only be as hardy as, say, berries, and these are about to go. Oh well. Well, that's interesting to know. So, cherries are not the kind of thing you want to store around for a while. Alright everyone, we are off to go and find us some ilmenite. And to that end, we are going up into this area. And I did a bit of snooping around here while I was prepping some extra meals and clearing out inventory. And right here, I think I know what this is. Because I've been playing this game for, 1,000 hours now. I'm pretty sure I know what this is. So I'm going to mark it, and we're going to go and see if this is something interesting. Let's be off. Okay, folks, we are getting close, and I can already see it, and I was right. This is a rather rare ruin type that I have found a very few times before. It is the only source that I know of these ancient pillars and ancient stairs, which I think were previously called quartz pillars and quartz stairs, but I think they renamed them so it was apparent that you can't actually make them with quartz. So let's get digging and see what there is to see in here. Although, I think I may have some trouble carrying anything. We got some slabs too, okay. You know what, I'm gonna put down a chest and we'll just put all the things that we don't need in this chest. Oh, here we go, we got a tool vessel. Alright. And what's in here? A couple of flint knives. No thank you. Okay, well, that was a pretty cool find. Just going to drop all this stuff in here. And we're going to go and set up camp somewhere away from this rift. Maybe in the side of one of these mountains here. Here we go. Little home away from home. I'll see you all in the morning. And good morning. I've been taking a look at the map and where we are. But it looks like we are right on the edge of a potential ilmenite disk. So we have 0.7, 0.7, and 0.7 here. So that means that right here in the center we might have a higher chance of finding some ilmenite. So let's go take a peek. Okay, we are right about the middle here. I did spot a handy dandy cave, or a very shallow cave. With the pigs watching us, we can go ahead and prospect for some ores. Here we go. Oh, actually, very poor ilmenite, so maybe we don't want to dig here after all. Well, that's interesting. Okay. I'm going to go do some prospecting, and I will bring you all back when I find what I think is the optimal location to start actually searching for ilmenite underground. Okay, well, I have prospected all of the chunks in this area, and it looks like these two, with this one being right where we had our little nap last night, are the best prospects for ilmenite in the area. So I think what we'll do is we'll just head back into our hidey hole and sort of dig out and then down, and we'll see what we can find. Go out a little bit first till we're nearer the edge of the chunk. Okay, and I think here is as good a spot as I need to dig down, and we're going to go ahead and go for it. Now, ilmenite is only found in primarily the igneous rocks, but also slate and kimberlite. So we'll see what kind of stone strata we dig through here, but we won't start looking until we find one of those rock types. And here we go, here's some granite. This is a potential starting location. As I recall, ilmenite can show up relatively shallow. So we'll start right here. Found a very large bismuth. Not what we're looking for. Well, well, well. Look what's down here. Some granite cobblestone. We'll dig through that in a second. But first we're going to check for any ilmenite. Nothing that direction. Let's drop a ladder and see what secrets this holds. Just block you up. Why not? So, looks like we have a forge vessel and some small amount of junk. Nothing else though. That's okay. We'll take the rusty gear. Why not? Not really interested in most of this. I'll take those. Alright, bye. Okay, well, no luck there. So I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna start just digging shafts and prospecting until we find something. Although I may need to, at some point, go and get some more materials for ladders, because I am fresh out. I may have to resort to blowing pickaxe durability on spiral shafts. Urgh. But I'll bring you all back when I have something to report. Well, everyone, it is the second morning and the third hole that I've dug here, and I have found, finally, a trace amount of ilmenite. So let's just fill this in so nothing follows behind us, and we're going to go and sniff this out. So I found a trace right here. So first I'm going to, as sort of a recap on how to do this, I'm going to see what direction this gets warmer in. We have no ore node. We go this way. We have trace again. If we go this way, oh, we have medium, so we're getting warmer this direction. Okay. Let's go. And we'll do it again. Large amounts, okay. We're getting even warmer. And medium, so I think we want to go over this direction. And we'll play the warmer colder game one more time because we should be getting pretty well centered on it. Because our search radius on this is only 8 blocks. So we have large amounts once again. And large amounts. So I think we should be pretty safe in saying that we are probably just about over top of it. I'll check this over here real quick. Large amounts. Okay, I think we are pretty much centered right over it. So, that means it is time to drop some torches behind us, I think. And now, we'll just start digging down. And there it is. Titanium ore. Alright. What we came here to find. What do you look like? Kinda just brown spots. And there is our very first Hematite. Once I clear some junk out of here. Now in granite you'll only find up to medium grade Hematite. But that's fine, we don't need a ton of it. And I'm going to dig it out with a pickaxe because I don't want to lose any of the drops. And I will, of course, take a sample. This one right here is the perfect sample. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and mine this out, and then we'll get moving on to the next thing that you have to have steel for. Okay, everyone. That was a success on our first find of Hematite, and we got 1 full stack plus 2 chunks and our sample. So I'm going to package this up. We're going to pillar our way out of here, and then we are going to head off to Chromite. And here we are with this box full of junk. Let's head on down. It's been a while since we've been through this portal, or translocator. Okay, now finding this stuff is going to be less of a struggle because we've already found some. Yes, here we go. Chromium ore. Now chromium in granite comes in medium and poor qualities, so we're not going to be getting a whole ton. But this is, as I recall, it's supposed to be a somewhat large amount, so let's head on in. And the chromium, from some angles, looks kind of like the titanium ore, but from this angle, it's kind of more blue. So that's what you want to keep an eye out for if you're looking for chrome ore. And of course, a sample. Yes. This is a much larger deposit than I was expecting. Okay, so we have our work cut out for us here. I'm going to go ahead and get to mining, and I'll bring you back when it's done. Well everyone, in this cramped little way station here, let's take a look at what we've got. So in total, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and roughly 3/4 stacks of medium chromite. We got 1 crystallized chunk, and we got, of course, our chromite sample. So we are looking pretty good on chromite and Hematite, and since we are over on this side of the translocator, our next goal is going to be to check out some of the limonite that lies in the water up here. In fact, there are several places we could get limonite from, but we're going to go here so that we're close to our luxuries merchant and see if they have anything good for us. I'm going to wait out the coming temporal storm here in our way station, and then I'll bring you back as we're approaching our next iron mine. Okay, we are coming up to our luxuries merchant right now. What's his name? Horace? Is that what it was? Horace. Wow, I got it. Hello, buddy. You have an echo chamber. Oh, this is why I am here. My friend, thank you. Thank you so much. And I would love some of your other luxuries, but not today. Thank you. Thank you. This is a very good find. Now we can finally play all those resonance archives we have and listen to some different music, hopefully. I'm going to go and figure out where I found the iron around here. Oh, it's a bit of ways away. Okay, that's fine. And I will bring you all back once we're there and ready to dig. Okay, everyone. Somewhere around here, we have a hole that we've dug, or something. I do know we have a merchant up here where we can maybe rest for the night if his cart is large enough. Ooh, he's got a nice bed too. Oh, you can buy ancient pillars. Interesting. Okay, so the ancient pillars we found before aren't the only way of getting these, but they're pretty pricey. We are going to... it's brown coal. Now, I know we have somewhere here a hole that we dug. It's there, but why do I have a complete non-hole dug over here? It is literally right here. Okay, well I guess we'll just go for it. And that is not too far down, so I might just staircase down. Oh. Oh, that's why I found it away from the hole I dug. It's because it's in a cave all on its own. Well, that's cool. Minus all the drifters. Wouldn't mind skipping them. Hey. Get. Oh, these actually slow you down. Interesting. Did not realize that. Now we're going to block off this over here. Don't think we need any adventurous drifters in this direction. And we will also head over here. Well, they are unlikely to get to us from this direction. So let's just go ahead and block this off like this. And we'll just drop a torch. And now we can hopefully talk about limonite. So here is bountiful limonite in shale. And this is the only kind of iron ore that will spawn in non-igneous rocks. This is a sedimentary rock layer in shale, and limonite, also known in the real world as bog iron, because of its propensity for sort of showing up under bogs in sedimentary rock formations, of course, and it's this kind of rust color. It can be yellow in the real world, but this is the last and final type of iron ore that we have yet to encounter. So I'm going to grab a sample, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to mine out as much of this as we can carry, which is apparently none because my inventory is full of junk. So, with the backdrop of these gorgeous glowworms that I wish we could harvest and propagate, let's get to it. While we're mining out all this limonite, let's talk a little about the channel, vintage story, and future plans. I wanted to cover this since I've gotten a lot of non-20 questions comments across numerous videos about what other plans I have for the channel, among other odds and ends. First, vintage story will continue for a while yet. In previous 20 questions segments, I've mentioned that I want to head south for quite some distance. I want to actually set down roots there and put together several builds. Before we get to that though, we have a few more builds that I want to get to up on Lupine Ridge, as well as finishing projects that need attention. The still empty house and tower, the awful tower basement, the house's attic, and so on. I'll probably do another detail pass, maybe even a couple episodes worth, before I'm ready to call Lupine Ridge complete. I would guess we're looking at another 10 to 20 episodes of work up here on Lupine Ridge, and then we'll go on a journey. Speaking of heading south, I want to try to find a suitable translocator path to the south, so that we can pop back up to Lupine Ridge for materials or for bringing back some of the spoils we find in the south. So there might also be a few extra episodes of heavy cave exploration in order to find translocators. I read and responded to a lot of comments asking about what is next on the channel or what else I can add to the weekly schedule. Honestly, I'm blown away by the amount of support and love you all have for my vintage story content, and it really means a lot to me to know that you're all looking for more and for the next thing. The reality is, 2 episodes a week of vintage story is all I have time for. Vintage story isn't a fast game, and each episode is usually about 5.5 hours of play, followed by 3-ish hours of editing and rendering. Between that and my real-life obligations, like working to pay bills, there won't be any more content alongside vintage story, at least not with the current schedule. If I had the time, I'd make a video for you guys every day of the week. It would be possible to drop vintage story down to 1 episode a week and then do an episode of something else, but I would want to get a lot of feedback from you all before I make a change like that. That being said, I think I've narrowed down what's next to one of two potential games that I'm looking forward to. There is a third I've had my eye on, but unfortunately it's still too early in development and not stable enough for long-form play and videos. One of the criteria I have for any future games I play is that I want some element of randomness or unpredictability in the experience. Procedurally generated games like Vintage Story work perfectly for that sort of thing. If I were to play a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake or Tales of Arise, the experience in the videos wouldn't really be unique amongst all the other Let's Plays of those games. Procedural generation isn't a hard rule, but I at least want a game where my starting conditions and/or choices matter and make the playthrough unique to a fair degree. One of the games I have my eye on is called Star Sector. It's another game I have a lot of experience with. It's also unfinished, like Vintage Story. I'm hoping that the next update comes out in the next 6 months or so. It's supposed to bring out a lot more, or even all, of the story content, as well as a plethora of new spaceships. It's an open world, or open galaxy as it were, story-rich game. For those of you who appreciate the Vintage Story lore reading episodes, that might appeal to you. It's interspersed with rich and tactical space battles, as well as dangerous but lucrative exploration. The other game I'm looking at is one I found out about from the Splattercat Gaming YouTube channel. It's called Unexplored 2. It's a fully procedurally generated roguelite game where you are an explorer trying to find the endgame MacGuffin to bring world peace or something. The game focuses more on exploration, discovery, and diplomacy than combat, and even in death, your character and their achievements are meaningful, as you can unlock equipment that gets passed down to your next character, new playable races and skills, and all sorts of stuff. I barely know anything about this game other than what I learned watching 40-odd minutes of gameplay, but this seems right up my alley. I'll be curious to hear what you all think about these options, and when we're a handful of episodes away from the end of Vintage Story, I'll probably put up a poll to see what tickles everyone's fancy the most. And these options might change drastically between now and then. Lastly, I've had a few questions about how to get in touch with me and whether something like an official Discord server is in the cards. I'm honestly still a bit undecided. Discord isn't a huge commitment, but it is a commitment. Any time that Discord would take for me to manage and participate in would be time away from recording and editing Vintage Story at this point. It is something I'd like to do, however, but I'm trying to figure out the logistics of it. Tied into that, I've had some people ask how they can further support the channel. One of them led me to monetizing the channel, which enables things like super thanks, and I now have a Humble Store partner link. Others have asked about Patreon. This is maybe a future option, but I don't know yet exactly what I could offer to the community through Patreon without it seeming like a pay-to-talk-to-me scheme, which I'd want to avoid. BuyMeACoffee.com has also come up, but it looks to be similar to Patreon, so I think I'd prefer to pick one of the two and just stick with one. But really, thanks for all your support in general, and I really appreciate the enthusiasm for further supporting the channel. I'll keep working on figuring out how to best go about this for the future, so keep an eye out. Now, let's get back to Vintage Story, as it looks like we're about to wrap up our mining trip. Well everyone, that is it for the Hematite. Let's take a look at what we got before we bring it home. So in total, here we go, we got, this many. This is, remember way back when, episode, 29 or 30, when I said we didn't have forever amounts of iron? We do now. This is, each of these is almost twice as many iron nuggets as the magnetite was, or for magnetite 7 versus this bountiful chunk of Hematite. So, yes, basically double this, and that's how much of the magnetite this represents. On top of that, we have the iron back home that we mined earlier in this episode, and that is going to increase this also pretty dramatically. I think we have another full chest worth, basically. In addition, I did find another vein of black coal, so we have a whole bunch of stacks of that, and I'm going to cram as much as I can into my inventory, and we're going to pack this up and bring it home. I will probably leave this trunk here with a couple odds and ends in it in case we want to come back and just grab some shellstone, but I don't really think we will. Just not really seeing that happening. Anyway, I'm going to pack this up, take it home, and I'll meet you all there, and we can go over what we found and what our plans are for it. Well everyone, we have made it back. It took me 2 trips, which is about 2 days worth of traveling, back up to the translocators up to the north. But I finally have everything that we brought back with us in these 3 trunks right here. Now I did omit anything we had already stashed at our waypoints, mostly just stone and spare logs and stuff. That doesn't really count. Today, we got everything in these 3 chests, minus the couple of books that are in that left chest over there. So, let's take a look. In no particular order, we'll go left to the right. We have, in this chest, we have our ilmenite, our chromite, and our curiosities. So, first we got an echo chamber. Well, not first chronologically, but we have here an echo chamber, which we purchased from our luxuries merchant. We have a few resonance archives that we can play on this thing, and I am looking forward to listening to those with you. I will probably start putting some in the background music now that we have those available. I also couldn't help myself, and I did manage to snatch a few seashells that I noticed as I was passing by different places, and luckily they didn't actually clog up my inventory. I had enough room for them. So, cool. 5 different seashells in 3 different colors. Next we have the chromium ore. This we got from beyond the north waypoint that takes us to the south. And we have our usual sample. We have a crystal, which is pretty cool. And then we have 4 3/4 stacks of chunks of medium chromite. Now these, we won't be turning them into nuggets. We'll be crushing them into powder for use with dyes later. And I'm going to hang on to these because, as I mentioned earlier, the dyeing system is going to be, as I understand, somewhat less expensive in 1.17. Next we have our titanium ore, and we don't have a ton of it, but we don't really need it, to be honest. I just wanted to get it for completion's sake. We have our sample here, and we have just over 1 stack of medium chunks of ilmenite. And same thing, we will not be turning these into nuggets to make titanium because that has no use right now in the game. Instead, we'll be running these through the pulverizer once we have steel pounder caps, same for these guys, and we'll be using that to build the tier 3 refractory bricks. Next up, I did run into a big ol' vein of bismuthinite, so I grabbed that, almost a stack of medium there. And then that one ruin we found that had the ancient pillars, ancient stairs, and ancient slabs. I brought those home, and I think they're pretty cool. And we got a smattering of bony soil from those. Next up, the Hematite chest, and also the Kimberlite chest. So we got, 7 full stacks of rich Hematite, and almost 8 full stacks if you were to combine these 2 together. So that is pretty good. Each of these breaks down into 6 nuggets, so not quite as many as the bountiful limonite, but pretty close. And of course we have a rich crystallized chunk of hematite, and then samples from both the green stone and granite. I also brought back some of the granite and the green stone, as well as 2 1/4 stacks of kimberlite rock, and a whole bunch of kimberlite stones. And then the mother lode. This is this is forever iron right here. This, I don't think with this combined we will ever need to go and mine iron ever again in this playthrough. Unless we decide to make 17 suits of armor, in which case we'll need about 10 times as much. But this is, 28.5 stacks of bountiful limonite. That is a ton of iron. We have our sample, and we have a couple crystallized chunks, and then I also brought back the 5 stacks of black coal. I left 2 pieces back at the mine where I left the box full of stones, but I don't really care too much. I have some organizing to do between episodes, so I'm going to start getting to that and maybe start crushing down and getting some of this iron into some bloomeries and getting that going on. That is about all we have time for in this episode of the Vintage Story Guide. I hope you enjoyed our little mining expedition, as well as our discussions, the 20 questions, and my thoughts on this channel and our future. If you have any more 20 questions you'd like to ask, please leave it in a comment with the hashtag 20questions. And if you play video games and you'd like to support the channel, consider using my partner link next time you're shopping on the Humble Store, on screen now and in the description below. Anyway, as always, my name has been Corazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.